force, maybe to use a Star Wars term, and that this force can best be accessed through Lucifer. And then very quickly on after that, my teachers, both physical plane teachers and also my if you want to say spirit guides, they were actually demons now, I believe, but these people would tell me, if you really want to progress into Satanism, which is really essentially the higher, if you want to say, levels of witchcraft, then you need to go and get your Blue Lodge degrees and either take the York Rite or the Scottish Rite. So I joined the lodge because basically it was suggested to me by witches. And when of course, they do the interview and they come to your home and talk to you, and they asked me if I believed in a supreme being, and I said yes. And of course, the supreme being I believed in was the horned god of witchcraft, and it was no business of theirs. I could have believed that the supreme being of the universe was a doorknob as far as masonry is concerned, and they wouldn't have cared. And so they welcomed me into their fold and basically took me in and initiated me, passed me, and raised me to the sublime degree of a master mason in about a year. And that's how I got in.
The History of Freemasonry, written by Masonic scholar Albert Mackey and published by the Masonic History Company, honors Nimrod as a great Mason. Mackey argues that Nimrod deserves the distinction of being called the first Grand Master. The universal sentiment of the Masons of the present day is to confer upon Solomon, king of Israel, the honor of being their first Grand Master. But the legend of the craft had long before, though there was a tradition of the temple extant, bestowed, at least by implication, that title upon Nimrod, the king of Babylonia and Assyria. A multitude of pagan gods are contained in Masonic literature. The History of Freemasonry, written by Masonic scholar Albert Mackey, contains representations of Ashtaroth, Dagon, Vishnu, Baal, Abraxas, the god of Gnosticism, the goat of Mendez, and many others. Speaking of pagan deities, Mackey wrote in the text, "They were all characters of human origin in the mythologic ages, designed as the saviors of men, each one emphatically the representative Christos or Christ of his particular nation, and the religious system designed to restore the lost and fallen race of man. Now as Masons we decide not between these, but take all in as our brethren, and the one God as our Heavenly Father revealed to us as such in the great light of Masonry." There is certainly no shortage of testimonies by Masonic authorities to the relationship of Freemasonry and the mystery religions. Joseph Fort Newton was a 33rd degree Mason who served as past Grand Chaplain of the Grand Lodge of Iowa and past Grand Prelate of the Grand Encampment of Knights Templar of the United States. According to Fort Newton, Masonry is the spiritual descendant of the mysteries. In his book, The Builders, Newton writes, "Masonry stands in this tradition, and if we may not say that it is historically related to the great ancient orders, it is their spiritual descendant, and renders much the same ministry to our age which the mysteries rendered to the olden world." The connection between Freemasonry and the ancient mystery religions is shown even in the architecture of Masonic. The House of the Temple in Washington, D.C. is a case in point. The focal point of the temple room is a black stone altar. The black stone altar is a significant symbol in witchcraft and Satanism as well as in Scottish Rite Freemasonry. Behind the black stone altar, steps lead to an elevated throne where the sovereign Grand Commander presides over the occult rituals of the 33rd degree of Scottish Rite Freemasonry. Large carvings of intertwined snakes are prominently displayed on both sides of the throne. Since the Garden of Eden, the symbol of the snake has been universally recognized as a representation of Satan. Snakes are displayed even on the exterior of the building above the main entrance. The literature of Freemasonry is rich with occult symbolism. Surprisingly, some Masonic literature contains instructions on conjuring demons, and some is so blatant as to openly discuss human sacrifice. A case in point is The Secret Teachings of All Ages by Manly Palmer Hall. Hall's book is recommended in books such as A Bridge to Light, which are published under the authority of the Supreme Council of the 33rd degree of Scottish Rite Freemasonry. Others who are in a position to recognize the elements of Satanism have also noticed the similarities between Satanism and Freemasonry. Anton Sandor LaVey, the founder of the Church of Satan and the author of the Satanic Bible, also wrote a book entitled The Satanic Rituals. The Satanic Rituals describes in detail the rites of Lucifer. LaVey describes the Luciferian ritual known as the ceremony of the stifling air. He notes that a slightly altered version of it is embodied in the ritual of the ancient Arabic order Nobles of the Mystic Shrine, another Masonic organization. He writes, "The original Templar's rite of the 5th degree symbolically guided the candidate through the Devil's Pass in the mountains separating the east from the west, the Yazid domain. At the fork of the trail, the candidate would have an important decision either to retain his present identity or strike out on the left-hand path to Shambhala, where he might dwell in Satan's household, having rejected the foibles and hypocrisies of the everyday world." A striking American parallel to this rite is enacted within the mosques of the ancient Arabic order of the Nobles of the Mystic Shrine, an order reserved for 32nd degree Masons. The nobles have gracefully removed themselves from any implication of heresy by referring to the place beyond the Devil's Pass as the domain where they might worship at the shrine of Islam. It really makes little difference whether Shriners worship Allah or the devil. Both are demons. Please understand that I am not saying that all Masons are involved in satanic ritual abuse, or that even the majority of them are. However, Masons who are Satanists are said to use the cover of Masonic secrecy and sometimes Masonic buildings to perform their abuse. Are there Satanists in the Masonic Lodge today? I asked that question of Bill Schneblin.
Well, as to whether or not there are many Satanists within the Masonic order, I personally think there are. I know that virtually every high-level Satanist that I knew was also a Freemason. Now, that's, of course, that's not a real good statistical sample because I only knew maybe 5 or 6 of them, but you look at the list of the men in this century who were the movers and shakers of occultism, witchcraft, and Satanism, and virtually every single one of them was a Freemason. And there is something about Freemasonry that attracts these people. They know that it is a very large, popular, secret society that because of its very nature, it lends itself to having secret societies within secret societies. And so it's like a shell or a framework into which these people that are Satanists can move, and to, again, by kind of trolling the waters, so to speak, they can begin to seine out the people who are really interested in first the occult, and then they go through a little filtration process, and they find those that are interested in witchcraft, and then they filter them out even more, and they find those people that are into witchcraft that want to get into black witchcraft, which is, of course, Satanism.